Welcome back to the Sports News Analysis YouTube channel. My name is Mike. I'm continuing my Week 1 previews and analysis. This video is for the game between the Cleveland Browns and the Miami Dolphins. This game will be played in Cleveland. Obviously, the season opener for both teams. And both teams come into this season with younger teams looking to take the next step, with quarterbacks looking to take the next step. The Browns also have a new head coach in Rob Chudzinski. Chudzinski comes from being the offensive coordinator most recently with the Panthers. He did have a stint where he was a coordinator of the Browns as well. And, you know, the Browns come into this year, and the main thing they need to figure out this year from an offensive standpoint is what do we have in Brandon Weeden. So I'm totally on board with starting Brandon Weeden. If you listen to this channel, you know that I don't think the 2014 quarterback for the Browns is on the roster right now. I don't think they'll get out of Weeden what they need, especially given the fact that he is already 29 years old. I don't think they'll see this year, a future guy that they can build around. I don't think he's terrible, but I don't think he's a franchise guy, and I think that'll bear itself out this year. But we'll see the kind of start he gets off to in this game. I think he can have a good game in this one in particular because the Dolphins secondary, I know they added Brent Grimes. I know they addressed this position in the draft a little bit, the secondary. But, I don't like their secondary as a whole, so I look for Weeden to have a better game than people expect here. I know Josh Gordon is out, but I still look for him to have a pretty good game. On the defensive side of the ball, the Browns move now to a 3-4 defense. We all know the big acquisition of Paul Kruger in the offseason. We'll see how he adjusts. We'll see if he brings them the pass rush threat that they need on the defensive side of the ball. And, you notice last year the Browns were in pretty much every game. If you really look at the scores of their games, how all their games went, there was very few games where they got blown out of the water. And, I think it all reverts back to the fact that, it was a young offense. I expect more from Trent Richardson this year. I expect more from that offensive line. I expect Brandon Weeden to be a little bit better, to maybe elevate himself to an average quarterback. I think he was a little bit below average last year. If he can just elevate himself to an average quarterback, you get Trent Richardson, running in between the tackles, being able to bounce it outside. He's also a pretty good pass catcher out of the backfield. I think, the remedy for them to win this game will be for Trent Richardson to be able to establish the run enough to set up easy passes for Brandon Weeden in that offense. I think the Browns defense can definitely do some things to confuse Tannehill, to confuse that offensive line, which I don't have much faith in for the Dolphins, and I'll get to that in a second. But I think the Browns will be helped by the fact that this game is at home, the crowd will be rabid, and look, I really like the Browns in this particular game against a Miami team that the Miami comes into this game having made a lot of big moves this offseason. On the offensive side of the ball, the big acquisition of Mike Wallace. They also picked up Dustin Keller at tight end, who is now lost for the season, obviously, with the injury he sustained in the preseason. They also have Brian Hartline at receiver. They also added Brandon Gibson. So the weapons are there on the outside for Ryan Tannehill. What I don't like what the Dolphins did was letting Jake Long go, not really replacing him at all, having, I think, huge holes in that offensive line. And I also don't like the fact that they stood pat at the running back position. Yes, Reggie Bush wasn't great, but he still gave you some production. And I don't know if I believe in Lamar Miller or Daniel Thomas. Probably Lamar Miller a little bit more so, but how is he able to run and back up an offensive line that isn't proven? We'll see how that bears itself out. I think that can be a young quarterback's best friend, a good offensive line and a good running game. And I don't know if Tannehill's going to have that. I think he's going to have a lot on his shoulders, both him and those outside receivers. And we'll see how he reacts. I mean, all signs point towards him being a lot better this year than he was last year, which you expect. I mean, how many times in preseason training camp do you hear someone say, well, you know what, that rookie quarterback got worse in training camp? You always hear these guys are better, but we'll see. It's not a birthright for all these young quarterbacks to all be really good. So I think the jury's still very much out on Tannehill, just like it's out on Weeden. Two guys entering their second year looking to take their game to the next level. I think in particular, Weeden has a better offensive line and a better running game. I think that will suit him in this game in particular. The Dolphins' defensive side of the ball, look, you have Cameron Wake, who's a stud. You have Deion Jordan, who you hope can develop into that pass rusher opposite Cameron Wake, which still remains to be seen. You added Donnell Ellerbe to hopefully beef up the Sorry, the linebacking core. You also don't have Kevin Burnett, who had a lot of tackles for this team last year. So they lost some. I really don't like their secondary. I know Brent Grimes got brought in. He's coming off an ACL. We'll see how that secondary meshes. But unless they put an inordinate amount of pressure on the quarterback up front, I see the secondary having a lot of trouble this year. And I think that starts with the game against the Browns. They won't be able to expose that secondary like I think other teams will, but I think they'll do a good enough job running the ball and throwing the ball. This is an even spread, which I think it should be. I think these teams are about as even as you can get. I like the Browns at home to beat Miami in week 1 here. Let me know what you guys think. Again, Browns just straight up on an even spread, beating the Dolphins. Let me know what you guys think. Hit me up in the YouTube comments. Hit me up on Twitter at SNewsAnalysis. Guys, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I preview every game here of not only week 1, but the entire NFL season. And I'm always talking football on here. So be sure to subscribe. Thanks again for listening, and have a great night.